so I can explain what this looks like. So just for the sake of the recording, we were talking about how we should work with the templates for some of the linear models that we're talking about. So this is an old template that I did some time ago for Cox proportional hazards models that are for survival analysis or time to event analysis, and we can definitely revisit this in the future. But essentially, this here is a R Markdown file where I added a code to each of the code chunks. And I created an HTML report showing how we can process, how we can work with survival analysis. So I added, what I did was that I chose a sample data set that everyone could use and run the template in the future. In this case, this data set is called lung. It's a data set for, I think that patients that had lung cancer that is made available by the survival package in R. And basically, I describe what are the variables of interest. In this case, we have time, which is the survival time in days, the status, to say if the patient was censored or if the patient died, and if the sex is male or female. Then I show just a little bit of the data with the first few lines here. I describe the data so people could actually look and understand, much like a tutorial, a template for us to look at. And when I go through this, I go step by step what I did to process the data. But not necessarily we need to focus on processing the data, but just what is needed to actually run the model. So Edwin, if you are doing, for instance, yours is linear models, right? So let's say you take a sample data set that you eventually needed to modify your outcome to be in the shape that you need to run the model, you just show that. Or for someone that is doing a logistic template, if they have a continuous outcome, let's say like GOSI, so the Glasgow Glasgow outcome score extended, you could binarize that into poor outcome and good outcome. So you'd show how you would do that in order to run the logistic model, similar to what William did for his thesis, for his machine learning models. So you would show that, and then you actually go through the process of fitting the model and evaluating the model. So in my case, for survival analysis specifically, I start with a Kaplan-Meier curve, which is the standard that we would do for survival. You would not need to do that depending on the model that you're doing. You're basically go straight from to the fit. But then here is where I actually fit the Cox regression with the Cox pH function to do my model. And I go into detail to explain, hey, what is the coefficient? What is the standard error? What is the lower and upper 95 that you see here on the summary of the function? What does it mean? How can you interpret that? How can you actually do a nice regression table that you would use in a publication? You can use this method here, table regression. How you can go from a single variable test. In this case, I'm only using sex as one of my covariates. But what if you actually wanted to look at multiple variables at the same time? So you want to run multiple univariate regressions at the same time. So in this case, I have this function that is pretty handy that is going to create to you a table with all of them. And then here, I add a small interpretation to what the results kind of mean, so you can interpret and see for yourself. And finally, I go with the multivariate Cox model. In this case that I'm using age, I'm using sex, I'm using weight loss, and I'm using the pH of something that I don't perfectly remember. And then I show the table. I would say that this is what you need to build the template. So we want to see what types, what processes are necessary to prepare your data if you are doing a specific type of model. As I said, if you're doing a logistic, you need a binary outcome. What if you have your outcome was at first a continuous and numeric variable? What would you have? What would you need to do in order to actually fit the model? And then you go through the process of actually fitting the model, evaluating the model, and say, hey, this is how you interpret these, this is what it means, this is what the standard error is, this is how you see it, and this is how you build a nice table. That's pretty much what you need to build the template. And you can even go to checking for model assumptions, which is something that is different from model to model. So a linear model is going to have the assumption that, for instance, the errors, the residuals are normally distributed. So you can check that. For my case here, we have the assumptions that not only the residuals are distributed, but also you have the assumption of proportional hazards for this type of model. So that's what I do here. And I even add a link because I don't want to transform this to a lecture. I just add a link for more information as well. So basically, this is what I did. And now, maybe if you guys agree, I can share this template around and you can plug and play, add your own information to this template that is going to render something very similar to this, if you think that this is a good format.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting format, and it is also comprehensive with most of the analysis process that you need to do, until even the plots, which are also really important, especially in checking the assumptions. Yeah. And is
Nice.
this Markdown?
Yes. So that's my follow-up
Okay.
question to you all. How familiar are you with using R Markdown and building reports like this versus just doing the standard coding, which is like basically going to the chunks and using the R Markdown file? Are you familiar with that? Is it something that is new to you?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's something that I am used to use just the chunks and not the full report, but I really love to learn how to do that because I think it's really also really important to be able to do it.
Okay. Just saying some random names here. How about you, Bali? Is that the same for you? Do you have some experience with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. So well presented it. This is how we were taught in the master's program. So I would say I have some experience.
Good.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So let me just pause the recording because then I can show you something else. Where did I? Oh, fine, I found it. Okay.